Hey guys, today I wanted to make a small video showing my process on how I made this plant using Clip Studio Paint and Blender. So the first thing I'm doing here is just extracting this plant that I painted for my texture, and this is the same diorama, so I'm just reusing the same plant and refining some edges. There's not a whole lot that I need to do on this plant at this stage, so you see that in a moment I'll just switch over and paint the flower instead. You see me here just setting up the symmetrical ruler, and that's because I find it pretty easy and handy for things like flowers and patterns to just use symmetry. It makes it very easy to design. And at this stage, I don't have a specific idea for the shapes that I want with my flowers, so you'll see me explore different solutions, especially for the petal. One thing that I kind of want to stress is don't try to settle on your first idea, because, well, sometimes it might be okay, it's not a hard rule, but more often than not you want to try different things and see what you can even stumble upon accidentally, and that's what I'm doing right now. At this stage, I'm pretty happy with the shapes that I found for my flower, and I'm playing around with highlights. And you see I tried very few different things, but I didn't like any of those, so I went with something very soft in the end, which I ended up liking quite a bit. Now after this part is done, I quickly jump into Photoshop because I'm gonna need to use channels there to create the alpha mask that I cannot do in Clip Studio. But that's nothing particularly fancy. You simply use your layers to create an alpha mask into the channel that will determine where is the opacity and what things are transparent. One thing I'm gonna do here in Photoshop is just quickly painting these flat colors behind the flower and the leaves, and that's because when you create your alpha there might be just a little 1 pixel margin and you don't want that poking through, because that's gonna be displayed as like white or black. So now that I jumped into Blender, I simply import my texture in the base color, and with the knife tool I start cutting around the plant on the plane. So this process is nothing particularly fancy. I just try to approximate the shape and the flow of the leaves, and this way it's gonna help me create the shape in 3D, and I'm gonna deform these leaves using soft selection just to give them a little bit of volume, nothing really crazy. And now, same thing with the flower. It's gonna be actually a little bit simpler on this one, I found. And that's because, of course, we use symmetry to paint it. So I'm just gonna make the same cuts with the knife tool and then just add a few loops inside to create more resolution. And again, with the soft selection, I'm simply gonna move some edges further up to give it some volume. And you see the modeling part is actually very easy. It's basically done. I'm still gonna do some adjustment and move some vertices up and down a little bit, but for the most part there is not a lot of complexity going on here. Now I'm just adding a little bit of extra occlusion for the leaves, and also gonna paint an highlight to kind of give more roundness to the shape of the leaves and make them pop a little bit more, because they were looking kind of flat and boring. And now for the flower, this is not something specifically important, but I wasn't liking the color combination too much, so I just played around with gradient maps and found a different combination of colors that I ended up liking a little bit more. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And with that, I'll see you next time.